Women, move your feet.
Sell her.
What's all this?
You will sell the niggers.
Sell little pants? You pick with more vigor than any other nigger. Choose another to go.
No other. Sell her.
I will not.
You will remove that black bitch from this property, or I'll take myself back to Janieville.
Back to that hog's trough where I found you. Do not set yourself up against Patsy, my dear. Because I will rid myself of you well before I do away with her. My mood spoiled. I will not. Dance. Dance, I said.
Welcome back, everybody. Hello. Thank you for returning. Those who have returned, I appreciate your support. Those who are new, I appreciate you as well. As I was reviewing the 12 Years a Slave clip, the interaction between the two women actors, the hostility and jealousy and hatred that the white woman actress displayed to the enslaved actress, I was thinking about how this white woman must have felt at that time when her husband, her successful, established husband, chose a enslaved, forgotten bed witch in their minds. This black woman who is nothing to them, and had to have her established white husband choose this black enslaved nothing woman over her. Can you imagine? Can you imagine how humiliated she felt for her husband to choose a slave, a nobody over her? Okay, let's get on with part 4 of Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl. Sit back, relax, and let's take this journey together. The older Linda got, the more intolerable she became to Miss Flint. The Flints had frequent arguments about Linda. Dr. Flint never punished Linda, and he never allowed anyone to punish her. Miss Flint was incensed about that. Even though Linda knew how much Miss Flint hated her, she still pitied the mistress. Linda never wronged her or wished to wrong her, and one word of kindness from her would have brought Linda to her feet. After repeated fights between the doctor and his wife, he announced his intention to take his young daughter, then 4 years old, to sleep in his apartment. It was necessary that a servant should sleep in the same room to be on hand to tend to the child. Linda, of course, was selected for that office. During the day, Miss Flint heard of this arrangement, and a storm followed. Linda rejoiced to hear it rage. The mistress sent for her. She asked, "Did you know you were to sleep in the doctor's room?" "Yes, ma'am." "Who told you?" "My master." "Will you answer truly all the questions I ask?" "Yes, ma'am." "Tell me then, as you hope to be forgiven." As she would hope to be forgiven. What kind of psychological demented BS was that? What was Linda doing that she needed to be forgiven? It seemed like it was misdirect anger. It's like you're putting your anger and frustrations on this little girl. I remind you, she was a minor. She was still a minor when Dr. Flint was aggressively pursuing her in a romantico, sexual, twisted way. Linda was a minor. And this woman, this white woman, mistress, was treating her as the other woman. What the hell does she need to ask for forgiveness? Your husband needed to ask for forgiveness and stop being a dirty, nasty dog. Perverted, child molesting dog. To be real with you. Are you innocent of what I have accused you? I am. The mistress handed Linda a Bible and said, lay your hand on your heart, kiss this holy book, and swear before God that you tell me the truth. Without apprehension, Linda did as her mistress required with a clear conscience. You have taken God's holy word to testify your innocence, Miss Flint said. If you have deceived me, beware. Now take this stool, sit down, look me directly in the face and tell me all that has passed between your master and you. Linda laid it all out for the suspicious, bitter woman. Every word that proceeded from her mouth caused the burdens of despair to evade her. Linda watched the mistress's face pale. The mistress wept and groaned. She spoke in tones so sad that Linda was touched by her grief. Tears came to Linda's eyes, but she soon realized that the mistress' emotions came from anger and wounded pride. Her marriage vows were desecrated, her dignity insulted. She dared to have even a bit of compassion for Linda. The mistress thought of herself as a martyr. It was impossible that she carried a minute amount of compassion for Linda. The mistress spoke kindly and promised to protect the slave girl. Linda was cautious to be reassured by the mistress' resolve. Experiences in slavery filled her with such a distrust one can't imagine. The mistress's past acts of harshness played heavy on Linda's mind. She was not a very refined woman and lacked control over her passions. Linda couldn't forget the main issue. She was the object of Mrs. Flint's jealousy and consequently of her hatred. Linda knew she could not expect kindness from under the current circumstances. Slaveholders' wives felt as other women would feel under similar circumstances. The fire of her temper kindled from small sparks, and now the flame became so intense that the doctor was obliged to give up his intended arrangement. Linda knew she threw fuel on an already burning inferno. She would suffer later. She knew she would, but she was thankful for the mistress' timely intervention, even if it was self-serving. Linda was made to sleep in a room adjoining the mistress. She spent many sleepless nights watching over Linda. Linda even woke up at times finding Miss Flint bent over her. Other times, Miss Flint would whisper things in her ear as though she was her husband speaking to Linda, trying to see if Linda was going to slip, thinking that was the husband whispering soft nothings or filthiness in her ear, and Linda was going to respond in a activated fashion, like she was turned on, in other words. So the mistress was playing some little dangerous, deadly, creepy, vulgar games. The mistress listened intently, waiting to hear Linda's response. If her antics startled Linda awake, she'd swiftly depart from her bedside. The next morning, Miss Flint would tell Linda that she had been talking in her sleep and asked who was she talking to. Linda felt her life was in imminent danger. For real? What is it? A woman scorned? Jesus. And then she can't control her emotions. That was dangerous. She was in better hands with the perverted master than the envious, jealous, bitter mistress. No words could describe the fear pulsating through Linda's veins, waking up in the dead of night to find a jealous woman bending over her. The mistress was not satisfied with the outcomes of her demented tactics against Linda. She took the psychological game to another level. Mistress tried to trick Dr. Flint and Linda into incriminating themselves and accusing the doctor of infidelity right in front of Linda. She told the doctor that Linda was his accuser. But the doctor was too cunning and smooth for Mistress's juvenile games. He replied, "I don't believe it. But if she did acknowledge it, you tortured her into exposing me." Linda was confounded by both of their blazing deceit. Satan had no difficulty in distinguishing the color of the doctor's soul, she thought to herself. Linda knew exactly what the good doctor was doing. He showed her that seeking protection from his self-serving wife was futile. He still held the power over her life, so he thought. At that point, all Linda felt for Miss Flint was pity. She was Dr. Flint's second younger wife. Her plan was upended and she had no clue what to do next. Linda was truly thankful that she lived in a town where everyone knew each other. She wholeheartedly believed that if she were on a remote plantation or lost among the multitude of a crowded city, she would not be alive. The secrets of slavery were concealed like Dr. Flint worked tirelessly to hide that monster that he truly is. Linda had acknowledged that Dr. Flint was the father of 11 slaves. The mothers would not utter a soul, and other slaves knew better to discuss his messiness in hushed whispers, fearing the repercussions, which were horrifying. Linda went on to describe how she felt northern women and southern women went into marriages with enslavers. They, thought it was going to be like running through a field of slavery. No, they thought it was going to be like running through a field of daisies, and then they wake up to a harsh reality nightmare that is far from what they imagine. Their families proudly give their daughters in marriage to slaveholders. The poor girls have romantic notions, flowering vines that all year round shade a happy home. To what disappointments are they destined? The young wife soon learns that the husband in whose hands she has placed her happiness pays no regard to his marriage vows. Children of every shade of complexion play with her own fair babies, and too well she knows that they are born unto him of his own household. Jealousy and hatred enter the flowery home, and it is ravaged of its loveliness. Southern women often marry a man knowing that he is the father of many little slaves. They regard such children as property, as marketable, as the pigs on the plantation, and it is seldom that they do not make them aware of this by passing them into the slave traders' hands as soon as possible, getting them out of their sight. But there were some honorable exceptions. Linda had known 2 Southern wives who made their husbands set those slaves free. Their husbands did as they were told. The black community already knows that behind every racist man is a racist woman. And we know that if white women really did not like racism, as they say in public, most white women, it wouldn't still happen, because behind every man you have a woman that she's either going to whatever direction this man is going in, trust and believe the woman has something to do with it. So if you have a married man who was racist to the core, trust his wife is right there with him, because she wouldn't tolerate it. If she wasn't racist and she really loved that man or had any kind of dignity or respect, she would be like, nah, I didn't sign up for this. When she first saw signs that this man was racist, she would have been like, she would have dipped out. But you married him and you stayed with him for 50 years and then you got 10 kids by him, and you want to pretend in public that you're not racist? Come on, nobody's stupid. Though this bad situation deadens the moral sense even in white women, to a fearful extent, some northern women could be heard saying, He not only thinks no disgrace to be the father of those little negresses. She didn't say that. They didn't say negresses. That's just my cover-up word. She said the other word that they so fondly use when they think no one is hearing, or when the word they used to use boldly back then when it wasn't all these rules and policies. And they didn't care about looking like racists. You know the word they use. But he is not ashamed to call himself their master, I declare. Such things ought not to be tolerated in any decent society. There was a young colored carpenter, a freeborn man in the neighborhood. The carpenter and Linda became mutually attracted to one another. He proposed and wanted to buy Linda's freedom. Could you imagine? Ooh, my mind, I can't even wrap my head around someone saying they own me. I don't like when a person think they can come and enforce their advice on me or think they have some kind of foothold in my life where they think they can tell me what to do and I wouldn't know how to function without their opinion. But just imagining having someone claim you as their property with papers on you, that is I just cannot process that. Of course, Dr. Flint did everything he could to interfere. The mistress, I'm sure, would have been delighted by Linda getting married. It would have relieved her mind of a burden if she could have seen Linda sold to some distant state. For if she were married near home, Linda would still be under the control of this ruthless man, Dr. Flint. Linda believed, like many others, that slaves had no right to any family ties of their own, that they were created merely to wait upon the family of the mistress. Linda heard the mistress say to a young slave girl who told her that a colored man wanted to make her his wife. "I will have you peeled and pickled, my lady," she said, "if I ever hear you mention that subject again. Do you suppose that I will have you tending my children with the children of that negress?" The girl she said this to had a mulatto child, of course not acknowledged by its father. Linda beseeched a family friend of Dr. Flint to plead her case to the unbearable brute. But it was all to no purpose. She dreaded Flint even more. Every minute Linda expected to be summoned to his presence. One morning a message was sent to her. "Master wants you in his study." The door was slightly open. Linda stared at the intolerable man who claimed a right to rule her body and soul. He looked at her with an expression that said, "I have half a mind to kill you on the spot." He finally broke the silence. "So you want to be married, do you?" he said. "And to a free negress?" "Yes, sir." "Well, I'll soon convince you whether I am your master or the negress fellow you honor so highly. If you must have a husband, you may take up with one of my slaves." Linda thought to herself, "What a situation I will be in if I married one of this idiot's slaves. Even if I had a heart to be interested in marrying one of his slaves, I wouldn't." Linda replied, "Don't you suppose, sir, that a slave can have some preference about marrying? Do you suppose that all men are alike to her?" "Do you love this negress?" Dr. Flint abruptly said. "Yes, sir." "How dare you tell me so?" he exclaimed in great wrath. After a slight pause, he added, "I suppose you thought more of yourself that you felt above the insults of such puppies." Linda replied, "If he is a puppy, I'm a puppy, for we are both of the Negro race. It is right and honorable for us to love each other. The man you call a puppy never insulted me, sir, and he would not love me if he did not believe me to be a virtuous woman." Dr. Flint sprang up like a tiger and gave Linda a stunning blow. It was the first time he had ever struck her, and fear did not enable her to control her anger. When she recovered a little from the effects, she exclaimed, "You have struck me for answering you honestly? How I despise you." There was silence for a minute. Perhaps he was deciding what should be her punishment, or wanted to give her time to reflect on what she said. Finally, Dr. Flint said, "Do you know what you have said?" "Yes, sir, but your treatment drove me to it." "Do you know that I have a right to do as I like to you? That I can kill you, if I please?" "You have tried to kill me, and I wish you had, but you have no right to do as you like with me." "Silence!" he exclaimed in a thundering voice. "By heavens, girl, you forget yourself too far. Are you mad? If you are, I will soon bring you to your senses. Do you think any other master would bear what I've borne from you this morning? Many masters would have killed you on the spot. How would you like to be sent to jail for your insolence?" "I know I have been disrespectful, sir," Linda replied. "But you drove me to it. I couldn't help it. As for jail, there will be more peace for me there than here." "You deserve to go there," Dr. Flint said, "and to be under such treatment that you would forget the meaning of the word peace. It would do you good. It would take some of your high notions out of you, but I'm not ready to send you there yet, notwithstanding your ingratitude for all my kindness and forbearance. You have been the plague of my life. I wanted to make you happy and have been repaid with this ingratitude, but though you have proved yourself incapable of appreciating my kindness, I will be lenient towards you, Linda. I will give you one more chance to redeem your character. If you behave yourself and do as I require, I will forgive you and treat you as I always have done. But if you disobey me, I will punish you as I would have the meanest slave on my plantation. Never let me hear that fellow's name mentioned again. If I ever know of your speaking to him, I will cowhide you both. And if I catch him lurking about my premises, I will shoot him as soon as I will shoot a dog. Do you hear what I say? I'll teach you a lesson about marriage and free niggers. Now go and let this be the last time I have occasion to speak to you on this subject." The doctor did not speak to Linda for a few tense days. No animal ever watched its prey more narrowly than he watched Linda. After a while, he became weary of silence, and she wished he had stayed that way. One morning, as he passed her to leave the house, he thrusted a note in her hand. The note expressed regret for the blow he had given her, and he boldly reminded Linda that she was to blame for it. He wrote that he had made up his mind to go to Louisiana and that he should take several slaves with him, and intended that she should be one of the number. The mistress would remain where she was, therefore she should have nothing to fear from that quarter. Linda was determined that she would never go to Louisiana with him. Summer passed away, and early in the autumn, Dr. Flint's eldest son was sent to Louisiana to examine the country with a view to immigrating. Young Dr. Flint did not bring back a favorable report of Louisiana, and Linda heard no more of that scheme. Soon after this, Linda's lover met her at the corner of the street. Looking up, she saw her master watching them from his window. She fearfully hurried home, trembling. Flint sent for her immediately to go to his room. Linda was met with another blow. "When is this mistress to be married?" said he in a sneering tone. A shower of cursing and hollering followed. Linda was overjoyed that her lover was a free man, that her tyrant had no power to flog him for speaking to her on the street. There was no hope that the doctor would consent to sell Linda to her lover. He had an iron will and was determined to keep her under his ironclad fist. Her lover was an intelligent and religious man. Even if he could have obtained permission to marry her, the marriage would give him no power to protect her from her master. It would have made him miserable to witness the insults Flint subjected Linda to. Her lover was going to Savannah to see about a little property left to him by his uncle. As hard as it was for Linda to say, she begged her lover to not come back. He left, still hoping the day would come when she could be bought. The dream of her girlhood was over. She felt lonely and desolate. After that, Linda began to plot with her brother William, a plan to escape to New York. Nothing was more haunting than her present life. She and William needed to be free. This fourth part will be the last installment of Incidents of a Slave Girl. Basically, the book concludes with Linda going on a run. She made arrangements to leave because what happened was Dr. Flint ended up making her go to a plantation, his son's plantation. She stayed in the house. She would be able to stay in the house and, working as a house slave. So she was going to be treated as a regular slave as well as her children, and she didn't want that life because she knew he would be unbearable, like worse than he ever has been, because she overheard the son saying that he was gonna break her because he basically didn't like how the father treated her, and he was gonna basically treat her like a regular slave and break her. She was like a uppity Negro. So they was gonna break this uppity Negro, and she was like, that's it. She made arrangements to leave late one night. Well, it was like midnight. She escaped their house and ran to a family friend's house, a friend of Dr. Flint's family. And the woman, it was a white woman, and she had been talking to this white woman about what was going on with Dr. Flint. And the woman had compassion for her and allowed her to hide in a room inside the woman's house that nobody really accessed that room. So Linda was able to hide in that house until it got a little too hot. Dr. Flint and others, police were, whatever they was called, slave patrol at the time, was looking for Linda. And it got a little too close for comfort. The woman that was a family friend of Dr. Flint's family was basically telling Linda, like, don't ever let it be known that I allowed you to hide in my house, because she knew that would just be over for her. So Linda ended up hiding at another house. It wasn't a white woman's house. It was a black woman's house who was a friend of Linda's family. Then she moved on to the family. Linda's grandmother's son built an attachment. No, I don't even think he was a son. I think he was a black man who was a friend of the family. He ended up building an attachment to the grandmother's house just specifically for Linda to hide. And she ended up hiding in that space at her grandmother's house for 7 years. And then she escaped from there to New York. And all the while she was fighting for her freedom, writing letters to Dr. Flint, like pleading for him to let her go. And he would make like, they were cool and, didn't have no issue with her. She can come back and she will be allowed to live as free as she wanted to. And, he wouldn't bother her and shucking and jiving, trying to think I guess he was talking to her like she was stupid. You know how they see black folks then and now, like not really intellectually bright. You could lie to them and they'll just, oh, okay. Like, big dopes. But she knew all along, she knew him too well, and she knew he was full of shit. And she eventually got her freedom. She was able to, once she was in a peaceful place in her life, she was able to, or convinced to tell her story. And as I said, I thank God for people like her who transcribe the horrors they went through, and it's been passed on through generations, keeping this alive, because God knew it was going to be a time where some folks is going to try to cover it up and hide it and try to make it not look as horrible as it was. But yeah, thank you for your time. Thank you for taking time out of your life to check out these videos, and I hope they're as valuable to you as they are to me. And wish you the best. Stay safe. God bless you.